Welcome back everyone to Ludus Infinium. Today I'm going to do a response video to this gentleman here, Spookston, I believe. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Um, the first video I saw of his was everything wrong with Imperial Guard tanks, which he actually did yesterday. And then this morning I saw this one, everything wrong with 40k's vehicle design Space Marines. And I watched it, and there were a few things he got right. There were a couple that it was situational, that on why he was either right or wrong, and then there were a lot of things he got wrong, and I wanted to just clear up a couple things. So first, I would like to go over what he said, what he did get right. And there's some of this. It's more in, and he did get a lot right. Don't get me wrong. He got a lot right in the basis of how difficult it would be for them to cross trenches, per se. That is something that I absolutely agree with him on. His channel, he focuses a lot on tanks and I believe aircraft as well, but he does a lot of stuff comparing tanks, and it's actually pretty cool. You know, give this guy a check. It's really cool. So when he talks about the treads on the Predator and the Land Raider, he says that they would be a pain to work on because of the armor basically encasing them on the top and sides. And yes, that would make them very much harder to work on. He is absolutely right. What you would essentially have to do, because it's just one piece of armor, it looks like, unless it's riveted, but even from this angle, it looks like it's just one slab of metal, is you would either A, have to take it off from the side if it's riveted, or B, just cut the damn thing off, which both would suck, especially if you're trying to do combat repairs. And their poor trench crossing capabilities. And he talked about this in this specific video, and I like this because of the way the treads are set, where they're longer on the bottom, shorter on the top. It makes it where it's harder for them to cross treads. What you want ideally, or cross trenches, not treads. What you would ideally want is longer over here and longer back here, and then shorter here and shorter there. So it looks like a. I should have drawn it. I should have. You know what? I'll do that for everyone because I actually want this point to uh, go to show that I absolutely agree with him. I'll use this one, I guess. So what you would ideally want is a tank tread that looks like this. And the reason is, and that's horrible, and I am no artist, but the reason is that way when it goes down, it can actually catch and then come right back up and just keep moving. So he's absolutely right on that mark. They would be horrible. Well, not horrible, but they would be worse than what you would have for trench warfare. And this is something I didn't know, and I'm glad. And I looked this up for this specific video. I thought this was wrong, but I did look it up. The Predator tank, which we see right here, has a two-man crew, a gunner and a driver, and they also have 65 to 55 millimeters of armor. Now, realistically, for the 40k universe, he's talking about how paper thin that is. I believe, and this is complete speculation, this is why I put it in the pros, because that factually is correct. It wouldn't matter, quite frankly, if it were thicker when you have, like, multi-meltas, or chaos, or orcs. I mean, everything in this universe is overpowered, so whether it were 55 millimeters of armor or 100 millimeters of armor, they'd probably eat right through it. So the thing that, and I'm going to bring this point up a couple times, I found one point that he was kind of right on, but it's situational. And that is the Land Raider. So as you can see here, the Land Raider does have its side-mounted weapons mounted behind the door for where the Space Marines get out. Now, Two things. These guns are either controlled by the machine spirit, or they're controlled by another Astartes. They're either basically either manned or unmanned. Duh. So in both cases, we are talking about Astartes here. They are genetically enhanced superhumans. They have reaction times that humans will probably never reach, and this is brought out clearly in some of the Horse Heresy books I'm actually reading right now, or well, listening to the audiobooks now. They their reactions and how they handle situations is so much different to a human because of their genetic enhancements. It's similar to, say, at least if this were controlled by the machine spirit, let's talk about the machine guns on aircrafts with propellers that are behind the propellers. It has a system in there so it will fire in between blades, and it won't shoot through the blade, thus making the plane crash, because that would be a bad system. And that's similar to how these work. Now, if it's an Astartes who is actually manning them, they'll know that people are getting out. And when they do, they'll probably, I mean, common sense would dictate they will, instead of aiming the guns right at the door, they can aim them out. So it doesn't run the risk of shooting any of the Space Marines that are being unloaded, and at the same time still be able to fire towards the sides and rear where there could be enemies coming up as the Astartes come out and forward. In addition to that, the protection from the mounted gun on top would help with whatever's in front of them. So, speaking of the mounted weapon on top, this is another mixed one. Yes, there are two hatches. There's one here and one here. I thought there were originally three. I thought this up here was a hatch. It does not appear to be so. But there are two hatches. And yes, the back hatch can cover the front hatch. That is absolutely true. My argument to this is lost in the void somewhere. Ah, right here. Front hatch, back hatch. They are completely interchangeable. So yes, you could have a case where it is where it is blocking there, but also at the same time you have the guy sitting here and all he has to do is and the front hatch can open. Now that being said, I also want to point out this picture as well because it looks like the place for the Space Marines to come out is also interchangeable. And if that's the case, then as far as the side-mounted guns being able to shoot the Space Marines as they're being unloaded, which would be really detrimental, it's even less likely to happen. So, and again, I'm also going to bring this up when it's talking about to bring my point back to what, like the guy just turning. This is true for both the Predator and the Land Raider, because I believe the Predator also has the position for. Oops. Let's do this. Has a position for the gun. Now, he also mentions it in the video. The Deimos pattern Predator is the only Predator with a machine spirit. I'm going to get into why that's wrong. But this is a Great Crusade and Horsey era variant. This is not 40k. This is 30k. But I'm going to go through. Yep. So it has the gun right there. And he was talking about how it. I kind of got this, how he's talking like it could prevent, it would make it harder for them to get out of the tank, although in most cases they wouldn't get out of the tank because whatever is firing at it is going to destroy it more than likely, or at least mess it up pretty bad. But at the same time, I'm trying to find a better picture. Okay, so like right here where you have the hatches right here, and he was talking about also how there are two viewpoints. I'm pretty sure I couldn't find the schematics, but I believe this is the driver and this is the gunner. And when he needs to load, he basically just turns around and loads the damn thing, if I'm not mistaken. There's the schematics. I look like an ass. But even at the same time, it still yeah, it looks something like an autoloader almost, even though that's not true, but that's kind of what it looks like. Anyway, um, so my point is back to it being manned by Astartes. They can process information and what other people do stupid quick. So if you have, let's say you have the gunner, and the gun is over the second hatch, or for some reason he's in the top with firing a gun. For instance, like in this one, or well, in this one, let's say he's firing over here, and someone needs to get out right here. They have Vox system, which is essentially like a communication system inside their suits, and they can say, "Hey, I'm coming out the hatch," or something like that, and they'll know to stop shooting. One, and two, as soon as the hatch opens, he can either stop shooting directly over it and turn around, or just stop shooting. Period. So it really does come down to uh, not just the plausibility of it, but also who it's talking about. For instance, again, the Astartes, who are superhuman. And he makes a statement that machine spirits are the in-universe AI. That's okay. That's technically not true. The closest thing I've found in looking this up for as much as I have, the closest thing I've found that compares to it is from real life and also from a video game, and that the video game being Mass Effect, and that is virtual intelligence. The machine spirits are not sentient. They're not sapient. They can't think for themselves. They can't. They don't evolve. Where and there are a couple cases of like Titans developing their own personality, but even VI can do that in some limited cases. So it's not AI. It's VI, and that's a really small thing to point out. But the only instance of a machine spirit possibly even learning for itself is when you start to get into a machine spirit getting corrupted by chaos, and chaos can do realistically whatever they want. So that's a whole different thing. And then he said only the Deimos pattern predator has a machine spirit. Okay. Happy boo. Come here. Come here. Someone wanted to do the review with me. So he did say that that only the Deimos pattern predator has a machine spirit. That's just not true. Everything from a bolt gun to a Titan has a machine spirit, and predators do fall in between that line. Um, he was talking about the next one about how dreadnoughts are would be unstable and how their legs aren't that armored. That's a slab of metal. I don't think you're really going to shoot at the stuff in between. Now, like maybe these hoses are important and you could possibly shoot that. I would not want to be standing in front of this thing trying to shoot the hoses. Maybe behind it, but it's going to have a retinue of Space Marines around it, or at least there's going to be three of them at a time. Lore wise, getting deployed at the same time, most likely. And actually, here's one where it is armored, and another one where it is armored. There are some where it looks exactly the same as this one right here, where it has the hoses and it does have this little exposed part right here. But I'm pretty sure that's just a big ass slab of metal, and that really is armor. So as far as it not being armored, no, they are armored. And for them not being stable, I have found no evidence to show that they're unstable. I have found absolutely nothing to show that even though they are top heavy, that they wouldn't be able to handle most types of terrain. And this is actually my favorite point. This is my last point that I'm going to bring up as far as pros and cons. I'm going to say what I thought about the video overall. Actually, here, let me do this. That way everyone can see. Top baby! um, he wanted some camera time as well. Um, so something else that he pointed out was the Space Marine could not see through this viewport right here. There's an issue with this, and that is uh, primarily that the Space Marine physically is comatose. The Space Marine does not move in the Dreadnought. He does not pilot it in a traditional sense. These are all cameras right here. I'm pretty sure. Um, the Dreadnought becomes a body for a heavily incapacitated Space Marine to the point where they're going to die if they don't go into a Dreadnought. This is a sarcophagus, and these are the weapons that protect said sarcophagus. And only the most venerated of Space Marine brothers are able to be put into Dreadnoughts. And actually, there is a cool story. I want to look it up real quick because this is something that I this is something I find cool. I really find cool. Here we go. Yeah. And where is it? 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 I think it's up top. Okay, here it is. Ah, the oldest dreadnought in the Imperium, Bjorn the Fell-Handed of the Space Wolves, was a member of the Primarch Leman Russ's retinue and fought in the Horus Heresy when he was still whole of body, making him well over 10,000 standard Terran years old. When the dreadnoughts are not in use by their chapter, they are placed back into the chapter's chapel in his fortress monastery to sleep away the centuries and form a suspended animation until they are needed once more. Now, this is true for Bjorn. In fact, he's held in stasis a lot more often than not because he's been alive so long. It's not really corrupted him, but it's messed up his mind a little bit. I'll say it that way. And you like being up here? You like sitting at the desk? And he's been around for 10,000 years, if not more. I think it's actually closer to 11, 12,000 years at this point. That being said, I've not heard story one of dreadnoughts just like do do poof just falling over, and I believe they're heavy enough where if they too walk on ice and snow, they'll just indent it. Oh, there it is. Yeah, come here. Block, block. So now to get into what I actually thought about the video, I thought it was actually a really good video. The things he covered, where he was talking about the there we go, where he was talking about like how they would actually work, minus the dreadnought, but where he would talk about like the treads and how they'd be a pain to repair and stuff like that. That was really good. And when it comes to stuff like that, he does a really good job presenting that. But when it came down to knowing some of the things behind the lore, for instance, the machine spirit, not taking into account that there are Astartes and they are superhumans in these things, I mean, he fell short. But it seems like he he hasn't had an amount of time in the lore similar to people like me, where I've had about a decade and a half. And this is not me saying he did a bad video. No, I think the video was really well done. I'm just trying to reach out and say like, hey, this is actually how it would work. That being said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all enjoyed seeing little man right here. Yes, yes. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye.